Good evening. It is 6:30, so we will start the regular city council meeting today for April 8th. And we will start with a roll call. By visual check, we all are here. I will name off the roll call. Councilmember McCormick,
Here.
Councilmember Andori,
Here.
Councilmember Candell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kwok.
Here.
And I am here. We are all here and we will move to adoption of the agenda. Is there,
So I'll move adoption of the agenda with the addition of the reading of the land acknowledgement following number 7.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And I am an aye as the agenda has been adopted. And now this is for public comments on the closed session items. See no one in the room. Is there anyone in the virtual room? City Clerk Robbins?
The city council is taking public comments on item 6, closed session items only. Mayor Dawson, I have no hands raised.
All right, thank you. On that note, then we will adjourn the this meeting for the closed session and we'll return for the regular meeting at 7. for April 4th. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as it is the first of the month, I will read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Lafayette is part of the unceded ancestral homeland of the Bay Miwok people. The Bay Miwok and neighboring Ohlone people have lived in and moved through this place for thousands of years. They stewarded and shaped this land for hundreds of generations. We express our appreciation and gratitude for this profound legacy, which enhances and contributes to our lives to this day. We'll strive to honor this land and strengthen our ties with Indigenous communities that continue to live and work in our East Bay region as our neighbors and community members. We acknowledge and honor them and their ancestors, elders, and next 7 generations. Okay. And we will now move to public agenda items, public comment items, I should say, for items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments for items that are not listed on this agenda?
Mayor Dawson, I have public comments, and we will start with Nikki Cowger. You can go to the podium, make sure, no,
Right up here, the podium. Welcome, Nikki, and make sure your mic is on.
Mayor, before we have public comment, I was just going to announce there is no reportable action from closed session.
Thank you, Mala, for reminding us. Yes, no reportable action.
nope. Heather, press it again.
Oh,
There you go.
does that work? Okay. I'm going to read from my phone. It's not meant to disrespect that I'm not looking at you. As you're probably aware, once again this year, a group of people has spent much of the school day for the past few weeks outside of Lafayette Elementary holding signs that condemn transgender youth. Their posters and shouted words to passersby are hateful and patently false, intended to spread fear and contempt for vulnerable children and their families. They take photos and videos of our schools and the children, sending those images to other predators, encouraging them to come to our town in order to spread hate. Their purpose is to denounce the transgender community and access to affirming life-saving care that is protected by California law. It's imperative for our local government to take a stand against activities that promote discrimination and intolerance. This hate speech perpetuates division and hostility and poses a serious threat to the safety and well-being of our community. It undermines the principles of equality and respect that are fundamental to a thriving and inclusive Lafayette. As is already happening in communities all over California, I believe that Lafayette needs to provide more open and public dialogue and understanding among residents of different backgrounds, including transgender children and adults and their families. To do this, I ask that you implement comprehensive measures to combat hate speech through educational programs, community outreach initiatives, and the enactment of time, place, and manner restrictions in the community that prohibit discrimination and harassment of our children. I know that my family and other LGBTQ residents make Lafayette a better place. Please help make this a more welcoming and supportive community for us.
Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate you coming out. Are there any questions for Nikki?
Next speaker is Matt Cowger.
Welcome, Matt.
Oh, it turns off every time. Look at that. All right. I'm used to public speaking, so yeah, like that. I'm going to move over here so I don't shout in your faces. I'm going to be a little stronger than my wife. Lafayette's been attacked. My family has been attacked. We've been attacked by disgraceful people supported by international organizations. Those purple signs you see outside LES, they come from a UK group that exists solely to do this. These attacks come from non-residents, people that live outside of Lafayette. And these attacks are focused on our children, my children. When we saw the hateful messages outside LES over the last few weeks, We knew what they were under the guise of choice, masquerading as support for kids that have medical needs that must be met. Medical needs that are best understood by their parents and their doctors, and not a purple sign from the UK or clever slogans. And yet these interlopers in our community pretend that their message is one of safety and kindness. It is not a message of safety or of kindness. We are not stupid, and we recognize the dog whistle for what it is. It is a message specifically designed and crafted to avoid criticism of the underlying fear and hate, while sowing further seeds of fear and distrust in our community and our children. We are not fooled. I've heard the school district's opinion when we asked them about this. Their opinion that we should simply ignore these cretins for fear that perhaps they might become louder. That position is faulty, fundamentally broken, and ineffective. That position ensures that what our elementary school children hear is the voice that ensures they are ashamed and afraid. I refuse to adopt that stance, and so should this council. I remember in school, when I was young, being told, ignore the bully, they will get bored. That bully shoved me into the bushes a week later. That's not a realistically viable position to take. I hear Lafayette say that we are a welcoming, safe, and progressive community, and on the whole, that has been true in the time that we have lived here. I want that to be true, and I want it to stay true. Shakespeare wrote that talking isn't doing, it is a good deed, kind of a good deed to say well, and yet words are not deeds. I want deeds from the city. I want statements from our mayor and our city council that trans kids are welcome and loved every meeting, not once a year with a flag. I want flyers given to our kids about the reality of what it means to be trans every year, not once a year. My time's up. Thank you.
One
Thank you.
second. I have some questions. Are they still coming and what time are they coming?
They were here yesterday and today. So yes.
Yesterday and today, what time?
I'm there every day. They come about 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes before the children are set to arrive. They usually stay and take a midday lunch, and then they come back in plenty of time for families to start arriving back at LES.
So they're coming
Sometimes they
twice a
also-
day.
At least twice a day. They're usually there for solid chunks of the day. They rotate to positions that are when the Stanley's children are walking by intersections. So they're really elementary and middle schooler.
So are they blocking the sidewalks? Are children having to walk around them or what?
Children have to walk. They don't-
Last week, there were 2 individuals who had the big purple signs that were blocking the intersection at, what is that, Brook and Moraga. I videotaped them and asked them to move. And they did, but I'm an adult and I know children can't say that for themselves.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Please
Yeah,
come.
could I get the precise time? The morning and afternoon, just.
Yeah, so school starts at 8:30, but you can drop off at 8:15. So they're typically there at around, at least in the last week, and then this week that I saw them, at around 8 o'clock. And then again, they stay for longer than drop off. And today, for instance, they left at around noon. And then yesterday they were back in the afternoon, or last week, I'm sorry, I'm getting the dates confused. Last week they were back in the afternoon in time for pickup. So 2:15 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and 1:15 on Wednesdays.
Okay, and what is the UK group?
It's called, sorry, I took, First Do No Harm. And they do publish a lot. They have an online manifesto about their posters, which you can buy on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Our next speaker is.
Wait 1 second. I have a question for Mala and Naru, because we did have some conversation about that and we were going to issue a statement. Is that still the plan?
I think we discussed whether you were going to add it to have the
Okay,
council.
sure.
Yeah, I just
Now I
want to
know
know
what
if
to do.
there's related comments because I just want to say, of course, we welcome children, adults, whoever of all, everyone here. That's a statement I can say. We do strive to be inclusive, and I know by we don't condone the message of these demonstrations, and we don't agree with them. What we can do, and I understand that Vice Mayor Kwok will be meeting with you, Nikki, tomorrow with some representatives, so we can hear more about your ideas. We have also worked with our police chief and I have reached out to the superintendent of the Lafayette School District to get more information, as well as I know our city manager will be as well. So this is it's true, it's an education process. It is also, as you know, a protection of First Amendment rights. These demonstrators are on public property. They are not allowed on the school, and they're being very careful of that while the children are in place. And they can hand things to the children. So it's one of these things where we do need to, help maybe make sure that the school district also is helping to educate as well about what is not acceptable and help protect the kids. But we look forward to following up on your ideas and we'll appreciate that. But I just want to make sure we can say we do strive to be inclusive and do what we can to make sure people will feel welcome and safe. So thank you for coming out and expressing these concerns to us. It's important. Okay, are there any more public comments?
Yes, our last speaker in the meeting room is Mary Ann Hoisington.
Welcome, Mary Ann.
I feel like my comments have no interest after hearing this. This is horrible. This is just horrible, and bless your hearts for trying to find a solution. I don't know what the solution is. I'm here as your library commissioner, which is a little bit cheerier than the comments here. And my backup is Dorothy Walker. You've met her also. As you've been told a number of times, next week is National Library Week, and you celebrated it 2 weeks ago at your meeting. I couldn't be here because I didn't feel well, and I wanted to be here because I wanted to support Rob Tygett. He's doing such a good job, and I also wanted to help welcome Carol Varney, who is just stepping into her position just so well. I've talked with her today again, and I'm worried that she's going to work too hard at this job. She just is really getting on the top of it. Because it's National Library Week, the county has put out their annual report, and I have copies for you. You may have gotten them 2 weeks ago. I don't know if Rob brought them for you at that time. But there's another thing that I'd like to discuss with you tonight, and that is some hours that can be added to the hours that are provided by the county. The county provides 40 basic hours of staff time to every library in the county. Then each city can make up its mind whether it would like to add some hours, either 6, 12, or 16. And in the past, you have added 16, which we are delighted with. I discussed it with Rob. He says it works very well. And so the purpose of my being here tonight, as well as saying I'm sorry I wasn't here before, is to ask you to go ahead and add these 16 extra hours, and they have to be paid for. And it is not clear to me whether the city pays for this or the foundation pays. But the letter will come to you. I don't know if it's already reached you, and it has to be returned by May 31st. So I'm just encouraging you, please, if possible, whomever pays for it, to add the 16 hours. And I have to warn you, this has nothing to do with Sunday hours. Lafayette desperately wants Sunday hours. We can't have them right now. The problem is staffing. There aren't enough people that will work on Sunday to keep the libraries open. And our county librarian really feels she works very hard for equality. And the idea that Lafayette really needs these hours and maybe some of the other libraries don't, I'm having trouble getting over to her, but I won't give up. I'll keep working on that and I'll get off my soapbox or I'll take more than my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. City Manager Srivatsa, can you confirm, or do you know if that's from the foundation or we pay for that? Or-
Actually, I was just checking the budget.
Oh, okay.
I seem to recall it comes from the Friends,
Oh,
but I will look at our budget and I will also confirm via email to all of you.
thank you.
We typically, unless, at least for the last several years, we've been paying for the highest number of hours. And it comes to you at budget time and then you can make a decision at that time. No, the extra hours.
Thank you.
Mayor Dawson, we also have some speakers in our webinar here. And so Nina Mostapan is our next speaker.
Welcome, Nina.
Hello,
Hi.
thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what Nikki and her husband had said. I am a Lafayette resident and a Stanley Middle School parent. My child also went to Burton Valley, so not Lafayette Elementary. And I have spent any extra time that I can out counter protesting these signs that are out there. And the thing that gets me the most about them is that they are targeting kids. And we know this because not only do they come during pickup and drop off of the schools, but last week during spring break, they weren't out there at all. So the fact that they don't come when there's no kids present tells me, yes, they are targeting the students. They are targeting the minors in these schools. And they know that both Lafayette Elementary and Stanley Middle School have to pass by that main thoroughfare in most cases. Just to share a couple stories about being out there and counter protesting. There was a guy the week before spring break who was very vocal, yelling really terrible things, calling us groomers and child mutilators and just really horrible things that I just don't think the kids need to be access to. I know free speech rights, I get it, but I literally had to ask a student and their mom if they wanted me to use my umbrella to guard them from him as they walked by on the street. So this is a really, really impactful situation that's happening. And as a counter protester who's out there, and I've seen Nikki and her husband out there as well, I wouldn't be there. Like, I wouldn't be out there with the signs or anything if they weren't out there. So if we want, some peace around the schools, I feel like we have to try and find a way. I don't have an answer for that. But I think it's really causing upset amongst a lot of the kids. And I would just love if the city council could help with it. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
Our next speaker is Sarah.
Welcome, Sarah.
Hi,
Hi.
hello. I wanted to share a few things. I wasn't planning on talking, but I want to say that for anybody with a child going through such incredible, troubling situations such as gender confusion, my heart goes out to those parents, because I would never assume that a parent would elect to put their child through something that would ultimately harm them and cause permanent damage. And I think the message that is being conveyed by the previous speakers about the people standing on Moraga Road trying to convey a message of warning is being misconstrued. These people are trying to say that there isn't a reason to tell a child that they were born in the wrong body. And it is becoming more and more apparent that some of the so-called affirming care methods are actually doing grave harm. And we've seen studies come out just in the last week, a 15-year study showing that kids actually outgrow it. And another study showing that individuals who go through surgery actually come out of it on the other side with more suicidal tendencies. And with puberty blockers, that boys taking puberty blockers actually have such severe atrophy in their testicles that they aren't able to reproduce. And some can't even have, they can't even have intimacy as an adult. And so to portray this as people targeting children is absolutely false. They are out there on the busiest road at the busiest time of day, trying to get a message across to the people of the community. And these are members of our community out there. And further, this city council has on multiple occasions responded to public commenters saying you are not going to respond because it's not an agendized item. And yet here you are being hypocrites, asking questions and responding. So which is it? Well,
Thank you. Sarah, we usually don't comment on public comments.
yeah, but
I
you
can
just
answer.
did.
I can answer
You
your
just
question.
did.
Yes, we sometimes ask questions after the comment. So
Yeah,
we
well,
have-
no, you were asking questions directly of a commenter.
Mayor, can I just suggest that we give the commenter her 30 seconds?
Yes,
and
I was
then
hoping she would
Yeah.
take the rest of her seconds.
Take the rest of your 30 seconds and then after.
I will go ahead and give back the rest of my time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. And I understand your frustration. I just want to let you know that the way this works is public comments are public comments. There may be a time that we place this agenda if the council agrees to bring this to the agenda. So it's kind of a combination, but once there are public comments, there may be councils might want to ask questions so we can get more information. But it doesn't become an agenda item that we actually discuss at this time. Other than that, I agree. Oh, so no.
No, but I just
Councilor
want to
Rendere.
make clear, we have never said that we wouldn't ask questions. The mayor always asks if the council members have questions, so there's no hypocrisy here. If we want to find out more, if we want to have something clarified, if we want to find out what the hours are that people are there, we ask questions. We don't comment on it, but we ask questions. There's no hypocrisy here. And now I'm commenting on the previous speaker, but
That's
there
not
you are.
true because the city council
I'm
just
sorry,
said-
Cut off
and
this speaker.
your time
please.
is finished. Appreciate you calling. Are there any more public comments?
Yes, Mayor Dawson, our next speaker is Robert Lavoy.
Welcome, Robert.
Hello, good evening. Can you
Good
hear me?
evening. Yes, we can hear you.
I was going to talk about the housing, but this issue that came up on the protests, I did want to comment. And I agree with Sarah that there's a lot of residents that are actually on the side of the protesters, and they're just trying to get the schools to treat this very sensitive topic with a balanced perspective instead of taking a controversial position and not displaying the opposite view as required by their board policy. And I don't want to get into, school district stuff here, but some of the commenters said that these are outsiders, and that's not true. There may be some people from Moraga or Alamo that live nearby that are affected by our schools, but there are also residents there. And I went down there one day and watched myself, and I can tell you that Lisa, who's one of the people who's been organizing it, was attacked by a trans woman. That person was arrested. None of us protesting attacked anybody else, even though there was some very foul language used. I was called a racist and a Nazi, and I think you guys know that I'm not. It's very upsetting to see, people saying that this isn't a controversial topic. I wrote a letter to Brent Stevens along with several other members of the community. Those things are not published because they claim privacy, and so they don't publish them like the city council does. But we were complaining about this issue, the school taking such a strong position on a controversial issue. And Brent Stevens claims that it's not controversial. Well, clearly it is if you look at the protests. And there's people, when people drive by, you either get the middle finger or the thumbs up. It's sort of 50-50. So it's clearly a controversial issue. And it's not intended to aim at the students. There's no handouts. So that's another misuse. And yet the teachers are promoting things like the gender spectrum to these kids, these poor little kids that are not even old enough to understand what sex is, or they're getting taught all these things that you can become a girl if you're a boy or vice versa. So anyway, these are controversial topics. Free speech is important, and I hope that you guys don't try and limit that. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Councilmember Andre.
Yeah, Rob, thank you. Thank you for providing, I was going to say a fuller picture, but all the information we get adds to the picture. You mentioned that the protesters want the school district to take a balanced view. Is the reason, well, maybe you could say, why are the protesters out there at drop-off time and pickup time each day? Do you feel that's the easiest way to reach the school board, or, why are they there at that time?
Well, the school put up the transgender flag in place of the state flag, which is against the flag policy.
No, that wasn't my question. I was asking, why do you think they're there? Who is their audience? Why are they there at those?
I think it's the parents of the kids who may not be aware of what's going on in the schools. Because this is stuff that the school board does in their meetings on, one night a month. Very few people attend those. And yet Brent Stevens sends out a letter, promoting these sort of, the affirming care model, essentially. There was a letter to the parents in Burton Valley that referenced somebody's discussion about how you talk to a person, how you talk to your little kids about transsexual issues. And, these are obviously very, important topics, but the schools need to stay out of the middle of this, or present two sides of the issue. And that's what I think people are trying to get across to parents and to the school.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any more comments?
Mayor Dawson, I have no additional hands raised.
Okay. David, did you have public comments?
No.
Okay. All right. There are no more public comments. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the city manager's update.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council and the public here and on Zoom. I'm going to give you some brief updates from the various departments and also an update on the El Crotola gatherings. The note to everyone that as of July 1, the gas leaf blower ban will be in effect, and the Environmental Task Force has prepared lawn signs. Anyone interested in the lawn signs can go to our website and sign up for them. From the police department, a reminder that the Spring Citizens Academy starts tomorrow. 2 reminders from Parks, Trails and Recreation. The Age-Friendly Community Meeting will be held on Thursday, April 25th at 10 a.m. in this hall. And the 2 Parks Collaborative Meeting will be held at the gazebo on Mount Diablo Saturday, April 27th at 9 a.m. And then finally, I wasn't able to attend, so I'm sure you'll talk about it, but the Public Art Committee and the Land Acknowledgement Task Force are both delighted to be present today when the street signs were unveiled at the intersection of Lafayette Circle and Mount Diablo Boulevard, also known as Tushtak, meaning the dawn of time in Ohlone. And also the unwrapping of the utility box. With that, I wanted to give you an update on the from Caltrans. As if you recall, just a brief background, since 2021, the El Cortola overpass has been the site of gatherings where people wanting to express their rights of free speech gather. They've affixed signs to the fence, they've added flags, and this has caused concern amongst the residents who try to use El Cortola Bridge. It's a very narrow bridge with narrow sidewalks. The council has also discussed it and is concerned, as many are, about the safety of the motorists on Highway 24. More recently, starting in October, we've had the vigil, people gathered on the freeway. And we have been trying, staff and Mayor Dawson have been trying to reach Caltrans because this Caltrans is a state-owned bridge. It is responsible for any activity that takes place on the bridge, on the overpass. Finally, in early March, we were able to connect with Caltrans District Director, thanks to Senator Glazer, who set up the meeting for us. And in that meeting, Caltrans described their policy and we asked them to put it in writing and send it to us. We also reminded them that for the last few years, our residents have been writing to them and have not received a response from Caltrans. And naturally and understandably, they've turned to the city for some direction. Following that meeting, the city attorney had a meeting with the Caltrans attorney who verified that the bridge is indeed under Caltrans jurisdiction and enforcement will take place by the CHP, a sister state organization. Staff has been sending all the emails that we receive and any special events. We've been forwarding that to Caltrans with the hope that they will take action. The email regarding the vigil that was to be held, that was held last Sunday, was sent to Caltrans last week. Immediately, the Caltrans reached out on last Thursday, to the mayor, the police chief, and myself and asked for a meeting, and we did meet that very day on Zoom. Caltrans indicated that it had prepared a position on its procedures, and I'll briefly read it to you, and also pledged to post signs on the bridge, citing sections of the code wherein signs could not be affixed to the fence. We asked what would happen if there were gatherings, and essentially Caltrans said that would be CHP to enforce, but they were not sure if they were not positive it was CHP. They said they would follow up. Late last Friday, we received the letter from Caltrans. It's a 3-page letter outlining Caltrans' position. I just want to say it kind of validates what the council was talking about for the last couple of years. I'll just read one sentence. The potential of any upcoming community event on a freeway overpass raises significant safety concerns for the traveling public. A community event on an overpass or the display of signs, banners, flags, or other messages on Caltrans structures or fencing presents a distraction to motorists on State Route 24, potentially causing motorists to be inattentive and draw a motorist's eye away from the freeway while traveling at freeway speeds, or to suddenly slow down, resulting in traffic shock waves or erratic maneuvers that increases safety risks. There was an event on Sunday. It was much larger than the regular event. At our meeting with Caltrans, our police chief again indicated that Caltrans, the bridge is not under Lafayette's jurisdiction, but said that there would be police officers in the area should there be an altercation. But there was no enforcement. And naturally and understandably, people were very concerned because they had seen the signs and they had thought it would be, the rules would be enforced. So as next steps, I have sent all the letters and emails we've received today to Caltrans and copied Senator Glazer. I plan to follow up with him tomorrow. And what we'd like to do is to bring Caltrans and the CHP together to understand where the enforcement will come from. Just wanted to bring you up to speed on what's happening.
Thank you. Are there any questions? The city manager? Yes, please.
So, guys, I'd CC'd you and Ben about trying to get the information about that big accident that was on 24 right underneath the freeway during one of the demonstrations. We need to follow up on that. He said he would go ask CHP for the details of that.
I will follow up.
event.
This was a couple of months ago, if I'm not
Yeah, a month or
mistaken.
so ago,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It closed down like, 5 lanes of traffic and it was,
I remember.
yes, Friday afternoon.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Will we have comments after the questions? Do you want comments now as well?
It's not an agenda item.
No,
So
but
I'm not we're not looking for direction or comments. If you have brief questions, you can, but the specific discussion was not an agenda item on Boca Raton Bridge.
may I augment since, okay. Sorry,
Wait.
Libby, it's not public comment time. Well, this is for council. I just want to say thank you because I know this has been ongoing and it is frustrating because we have heard from both the organizers as well as the neighbors, and we once again are stuck in the middle. So I appreciate that we're following up with the senator, and I just want to let people know that we are pushing this because we are trying to get an answer. And the CHP did have a car that was kind of cruising the area, so it's still a question of what enforcement means. But everyone, all the agencies are concerned with the safety issues and try to hash out what that enforcement means. So we can get clarified statement from both agencies of what that means so we can post that and communicate it to our constituency.
Okay, well, thank you for all the follow-up that you've done. When we come to agenda item, what is it tonight? 16, I'm just going to ask that it be put on a future agenda because I think we should discuss it and we should be able to provide our comments. The one comment I'm going to make now is the public should be aware it doesn't matter what the cause is that's being promoted. We're totally content neutral on this. There's just no doubt. I've seen some things on Nextdoor that doubt that, but it's completely content neutral. But I'd like to see the full discussion. And
Absolutely.
again, thank you for all the effort on this.
Thank you.
Just a quick clarifying question. The meetings you had, CHP has been in the meetings so far, or has not? Has it just been with Caltrans?
CHP was in the meeting in early March, but was not at the meeting that Caltrans called last Thursday.
Okay. And, okay, well, I guess we'll be discussing later because like who actually needs to reach out to Caltrans? Okay, or CHP. Thank you.
Right. And just to, I think, Rube, can you confirm you also copied the CHP on that letter from Caltrans? And we will post that so that we at least have something to show and, residents can see what Caltrans, at least that formal letter was to us for full transparency. Thank you, City Manager, for that update. Okay, no presentations
Mayor, I
today.
think you were going to take public comment.
Oh, I was good. Okay, sorry. I could take public comment. Did you have a comment?
Mayor Dawson, I have no speaker slips and I have no hands raised.
I just wanted to ask what the event was, yes.
It was actually on Sunday was actually the 6 months of the, yeah. So it was, yes. Okay, thanks for that question, so we can clarify that. Okay, on to consent calendar. Would anyone like to pull anything from the consent calendar or move, or the public? Otherwise approve? Have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Mayor,
Aye.
can we just
Aye.
confirm
Aye.
there's
Aye.
no public comment?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Is there public comment for anyone to pull any of the items, which are the minutes from our last meeting, as well as a special meeting of council priorities off the agenda, to consent
Mayor
calendar?
Dawson, I have no speaker slips and I have no hands raised.
All right. So there was a motion by Vice Mayor Kwok, a second by Councilmember Candell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That is unanimous. Consent calendar items pass. And now we move on to old business with Patrick.
Great, thanks. Beatrice, I've got a presentation.
And I've just let David Hoffman in.
Yes, please.
He's our consultant.
Okay. Hello, Mayor and Council, and thank you as always for the opportunity to speak tonight. We're here tonight with a presentation that will cover both items 12A and 13A that will both review the recommendations from the 2023 Engineering and Traffic Survey Study. It was discussed here last November, as well as include a discussion of the results of the recently completed school zone speed limit study. I'm joined tonight by my colleague from Parametrics Engineering, David Hoffman. He's here joining by Zoom. So
Welcome, David. Thank you for being here.
before we get into the meat of the discussion, here's a little more detail on the information that we'll be covering tonight. We'll do a quick review of the citywide speed limit study, which included recommendations to reduce the speed limit by 5 miles an hour on 8 roadway segments.
Patrick, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Mhm.
If you're going to do 12A and 13A together, we need to open the public hearing for 13A as well?
Are you covering both staff
I'm
reports?
covering both.
Because then people will have 6 minutes to speak because they're 2 agenda items. So I just wanted to be clear, if you wanted to break them up, it might be better, but if you've already prepared this such.
How would you like to handle it? We don't have that many, it's up to you.
If your presentation flows like that, then that's fine. We can manage with the extended public comment. Can someone open that next item then, so that Patrick can continue? Would be item 13A, the designated reduced speed zone. Oh, I can open, I'm opening it. I'm opening that, item 13A for ordinance 692.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So after the review of the citywide speed limit survey, we'll move on to a discussion of the school zone speed limit study, which will include information on the state guidelines regarding these zones and the resulting recommendations around the schools in Lafayette. And finally, I'll review the proposed next steps pending the adoption of the ordinances that would permit the proposed changes to these speed limits. First, I just want to review the timeline of these studies and other studies, speed and safety related initiatives that the city has initiated over the past few years and that are firmly aligned with the 2 technical studies that we'll discuss tonight. Between 2021 and 2023, we collectively, as a city, accomplished quite a bit in this workspace. We completed a series of rapid implementation school safety plans around each of our schools that resulted in series of recommended and prioritized engineering improvements that have contributed to improved safety on the city streets around the schools. We also completed our local road safety plan that resulted in a framework for identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing safety improvements on our roadways. And finally, the Lafayette Police Department launched the Slow Down Lafayette campaign to address speeding throughout Lafayette through education and enforcement efforts in order to create a culture of safe speeds. And last fall, we completed our engineering and traffic survey study that reestablished enforceable speed limits across Lafayette, and that resulted in recommendations to reduce the speed limits by 5 miles an hour on 8 roadway segments. And that leads us to the follow-up study that provides an understanding of state guidelines around school zone speed limits and concludes with recommendations for speed limits on the streets around our schools. So more specifically, the purpose of items 12A and 13A tonight is to reconsider the recommendations from Ordinance 690 that was approved last November and introduce Ordinance 692 that would designate speed limits around schools. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to David Hoffman, who will take you through the meat of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. Can folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So Parametrics presented the engineering and traffic survey results to the council in November of 2023. On the left of this slide, you're looking at the system-wide recommendations map from the engineering and traffic survey from 2023. That's the cover of the report. Should look familiar. The requirements for conducting an engineering and traffic study, sometimes shown as an E&TS, are detailed in the California Vehicle Code, CVC. And those, along with the conditions set by AB 43, Assembly Bill 43, were used for the school survey efforts. So regarding AB 43, the existing methodology for establishing speed limits doesn't fully account for vulnerable road users. And this is an area of the vehicle code that has been steadily improving over the years. But when the vehicle code was originally written, it was very, very car-centric. And as our transportation system has continued to evolve, so has the need to protect some of the most vulnerable roadway users. So this improves the ability for local jurisdictions to establish speed limits in alignment with local context, land uses, and safety objectives. For example, a local 2-lane road may serve transit users, school-age pedestrians and parents, bicyclists, and be located close to a residential neighborhood. And this is a very different scenario than, for instance, a 4-lane road that is near a shopping area. Next slide, Patrick. So here are the recommendations from the Engineering and Traffic Survey to reduce posted speed limits on 8 roadway segments in the city. Again, this is from 2023. AB 43 allows for the speed limits on these roads to be reduced by 5 miles an hour after June 30th of this year, 2024. So the criteria and rationale that is provided to engineers and planners within AB 43 was to justify the reduced speed limits within the Lafayette engineering and traffic study. And that includes whether the roadway has been defined as a safety corridor or whether the adjacent land uses generate higher concentrations of bicyclists or pedestrians, particularly from vulnerable populations. And vulnerable populations really is anybody that, think of there was years ago, we used to talk about complete streets, and it was the 880 question. If you're 8 or 80 years old, would you be equally safe on this road? So next slide. All right, following evaluating citywide speed limits, the city wanted to take the opportunity to further assess and bring school zone speed limits in alignment with the current CVC regulations. And as I said, this has been slowly evolving over the last several decades. Additionally, this is an opportunity to ensure consistency with existing posted speed limits and current state regulations that are written to enhance safety for all roadway users around schools. And again, you'll hear me saying time and time again, all roadway users, vulnerable users, these are people who are typically not in a car. So again, this is all in line with all of the previous efforts that included the rapid implementation, school safety plans, the Slow Down Lafayette campaign, and the local road safety plan efforts from 2021 to 2023. Next. All right. This is our method. We examined the eligible roadway segments citywide, and the existing California Vehicle Code 22352 Section B, subsection 2, establishes a prima facie speed limit for school zones of 25 miles an hour. Now, regarding the prima facie speed limit, the California Vehicle Code under Section 22362 speed laws, it states that it is prima facie, I'm reading this here, it is prima facie a violation of the basic speed law for any person to operate a vehicle in excess of the posted speed limit. So the prima facie speed limit in California school zones, residential or business areas is 25 miles an hour. Specific to the California Vehicle Code, and again, 22352 subsection B2, states that the prima facie speed limit of 25 miles an hour applies within 500 feet of schools, regardless of the posted speed limit, when children are present, and that school area signs must be posted. So AB 321, Assembly Bill 321, established additional ability for speed limit reduction under certain conditions, as well as amending section 22358.4 of the California Vehicle Code. And we'll look at those specific conditions for AB 321 next. And next slide. So California Vehicle Code section 22358.4, this is what's contained within AB 321. It says that it permits local jurisdictions to reduce the speed limit to 15 to 25 miles an hour, up to 500 feet, when children are present. And that's a key term, when children are present. This isn't something that would be probably taking effect at 3 in the morning on a Saturday. There's not going to be any school traffic there. So this is targeted for when, those pickup and drop off school times, generally speaking. It also extends the 25 mile an hour prima facie speed limit from 500 feet up to 1,000 feet. From the school, and it has a third component that defines the conditions in which that speed limit can be reduced. And those conditions are that it's 1, located within a residential district, 2, that the posted speed limit is no greater than 30 miles an hour. And the third is that there are no more than 2 vehicle lanes, essentially 1 lane per direction. All right, next slide. As a planner, I get to see the data in the slide all the time, and it disturbs me every time I see it. So what we're looking at here is vehicle speed is directly correlated to whether a person will live or die. A person hit by a car traveling at 35 miles an hour is 5 times more likely to die than a person hit by a car traveling at 20 miles per hour. And why this is important around schools? Well, as we know, many children lack the ability to judge speeds, and children in general can be unpredictable. So pay attention to the statistics within the red circle that we have here. A person hit at 23 miles an hour statistically has a 10% chance of dying. That increases to 25% at 32 miles an hour. That's 9 miles an hour more. You go from 10 to 25% chance of death. And we all know that many drivers do drive several miles in excess of the posted speed limit. So a 25 mile an hour speed limit around a school is not a guarantee, right? Now, if that speed drops to 15 miles an hour, the chance of death hovers around just 5%. Next slide. In the Lafayette local road safety plan, always a mouthful, vehicle speed reduction is identified with specific areas to be proactively addressed throughout the plan. So that's built into the plan. These areas are important because prevailing speeds are higher than the posted speeds, and their unsafe speed is a primary collision factor for many of the crashes on the streets in Lafayette. So reduction of prevailing speeds around schools will enhance the safety of children, parents, their caregivers while they walk or bike to school. Will also enhance the safety of the staff that are working at and around the school, right? It's for everybody that's not in their car, essentially. These efforts are directly aligned with the 3 earlier efforts undertaken by Lafayette. And again, the rapid implementation, school safety plans to slow down Lafayette, and then the local road safety plan. Next. So many jurisdictions from large cities to small towns have implemented provisions of AB 321 in order to improve safety outcomes near schools. Other California jurisdictions to implement reduced school zone speed limits, and this is a small sampling, include South San Francisco, Palo Alto, Mountain View, San Anselmo, Sunnyvale, Walnut Creek, Los Angeles, Burbank. The list is quite large. Next slide. All right. This flow chart describes the evaluation process for determining applicable school zone speed limits in accordance with the California Vehicle Code. So on the left, within the green field, you'll see the 13 locations that would have the speed reduced to 15 miles an hour under AB 321. You'll also see the signs posted at the bottom of the graphic as they're required under the current California law. The 13 locations on the left, the green area of the graphic, all meet all 3 of the provisions set forth by AB 321. On the right, in the blue field, are 6 locations that would have prima facie speed limits of 25 miles an hour in front of the schools. And these locations do not meet AB 321's requirements because they are not located within a residential area. Next slide. Again, here's that same data now presented just in a simple chart. There are 10 schools that would see speed reductions. There are 19 locations or segments overall. 13 segments would have speeds reduced to 15 miles an hour when children are present. And the other 6 segments would set those speeds at 25 miles an hour when children are present. So next slide. Many of the schools have multiple approaches, and as such, not all road segments are identical. If all the roads were identical, we wouldn't be doing a study like this. The chart shows that some schools will have varying speed limits depending on the approach segments. This is because the roadway segments meet the requirements. Some of the roadway segments meet the requirements set forth in AB 321, and others do not. So in no case will the speed limit be more than 25 miles an hour in front of any school. And the next set of slides consists of simple maps of the segments and proposed speed limits in front of each school. I'll move through these fairly quickly, but they provide a nice graphic representation of how that shows sort of the length and speed limit for the various segments around the schools that are being proposed. So the first one we're looking at is Acalanes High. You'll see that these nice the blue line would be the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. The red line would be a primary school zone. So blue line would be under AB 321. The red line would be under the current vehicle code. And next we go to Bentley Upper School, which keeps the primary school zone at 25 miles an hour. We move on to Burton Valley, and you'll see in Burton Valley, and the 2 approaches to the school are the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Happy Valley Elementary School has the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in front of the school. It is not strictly residential. The next two are Lafayette Elementary School and MH Stanley Middle School. So this is a mix here, right? There's going to be some 15-mile-an-hour roads like School Street and First Street. Moraga, it would be 25 miles an hour. And St. Mary's is a holdover from some of the earlier work that was done in an earlier study, and that would still be 25 miles an hour. It's shown here in purple because it was not directly part of this study, but it is already, it's located next to the school. So next we move into Mayor School, and that's a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. St. Perpetua School, again, is another 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Spring Hill Elementary is a mix of the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit and the 25 miles an hour on Pleasant Hill Road. And the Springstone School, 15 miles an hour. And we're looking at a combined map on this slide of the two studies that have been referenced today. So the thick lines are the engineering and traffic study work that had been done previously. The thin lines are the work that's being done as part of the school safety study. So only segments where recommendations to the speed limit reductions being made are shown. All others would remain the same. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn over the last part of this presentation back to Patrick, and I really do appreciate your attention. Thank you.
So final slide, in terms of the next steps and as described in my staff reports, staff recommends that council uphold Ordinance 690 and permit Ordinance 692 to continue to a second reading for adoption. If speed limits are to be reduced, staff will coordinate the implementation as one coordinated effort that would take place over the upcoming summer when schools are not in session. We would also prepare a communication effort both pre and post implementation to promote awareness of the new speed limits and coordinate efforts with the police department to ensure that our officers are helping to communicate the new speed limits as enforcement efforts ramp up in the fall when schools open and they tend to be out there to monitor conditions.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, David. Those are really great, thorough reports. Are there questions? Councilmember McCormick.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did have a question on the Happy Valley characterization of it not being a primarily residential area. I'm not sure what else that could be in front
Yeah,
of the village. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The CVC has a very prescriptive definition of what a residence district is. And so it's at least 16 dwellings per quarter mile on both sides of the street or 13 dwellings per quarter mile on one side of the road. And so if there's not the residential density that meets those numbers, we can't call it a residential district per CVC.
Okay, and we couldn't lower, and without that criteria, we don't have the authority to lower.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes, please.
I have questions about two roadways in particular. So for the first one, I just want this is for 12A, from Mount Diablo from First Street to Pleasant Hill Road. This one, can you tell me the justification for trying to bring that down to 30 miles an hour when the prevailing speeds are so much higher than that?
Right. Well, now we've got a little bit more flexibility in reducing speed limits as David described per the CVC. And the justification can be made one of two ways. One is by categorizing it as a safety corridor, and it is listed as a high injury network in our local road safety plan. But also, if the land uses surrounding that roadway generate pedestrian and bicycle activity. So we've got sidewalks there, we've got bicycle facilities, we have bus stops, the La Miranda school bus stops there. We have two senior facilities on that stretch of Mount Diablo, commercial stores that generate pedestrian activity as well. And so really it's a what are the surrounding land uses justification.
And then also what would be thoughts on trying to reduce the speeds to actually get to the 30 miles an hour besides just posting the signs? What are things out there that probably that we could consider adding to that to get the speeds to go down?
Well, we could work on narrowing the travel lanes. We've got a grant proposal out there to add rapid flash and beacon at the unprotected crosswalk at Hampton. We've just added a signal along that stretch. So we are over time adding more safety treatments to that eastern segment of Mount Diablo.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then the next one is for 13A. And that's the Pleasant Hill Road near Akalani's. I know we can't try to slow it down below 25, but the same question is, especially from Deer Hill Road past the school, when there's no crosswalks, there are no kids that cross there. What is the justification that we can use? I know we can do it by the law, but what other justifications do we have to try to slow it down there?
Well, we do have kids crossing at Deer Hill.
At Deer, I
and
said
also
regardless.
Quant and Spring Hill as well.
And then, but there's a whole big region in
It
between.
is,
there.
it's already signed for 25. So if you
Okay.
go out there, you'll see probably 6 to 8 signs right currently that have been out there that say speed limit 25 when children are present. So it's,
Have we done a
a
study on the
chance.
speeds to see if anybody's going 25? I think we did, right?
actually, yes.
And
Officer
is
Conley did.
anybody getting close to 25 miles an hour?
I would have to pull up his Officer Conley's report.
Okay,
Probably not.
right. That's okay. That's what I was wondering. Thank you. That's my questions.
Any more questions? Vice Mayor Kwok.
Thank you for the report. One of your closing comments was about timing of rollout, and you talked about how the plan would to be one coordinated effort to do everything all at the same time. And I understand that the Transportation and Circulation Commission looked into this topic, and that there was a discussion of whether it might be better to phase this out versus one shot. And I know it was discussed then, and there were letters written after that. Can you summarize sort of where you think you're at in coming here today with that whole conversation of, is it better to phase this out versus is it better to do it in one shot?
Right. So the comments that I received from some of the commissioners at the February Transportation and Circulation Commission was that this is a lot for the city to comprehend. It's a lot to implement at one time. In my opinion, we should be changing the speed limits in the summer when schools aren't in session, so that when schools come back, we can communicate that, we've done this collective effort. We also have currently, I should have mentioned this in my presentation, existing school zone speed limit signs around many of the schools, not all, but many or most. And so what this effort is doing is ensuring alignment with current state guidelines and making sure that the signs are correct and are enforceable. But in my opinion, if it's done piecemeal, I think that adds more confusion than not, particularly given that we've got existing school zone speed limit signs around so many of the schools. Thank you.
Councilor Mondre.
Let me follow up on that. What you just told us about it being, your view is it's more effective to do it all at once during the summer. Was that mentioned to the commission?
Yes, it was. I personally would not want to change the speed limits around schools in the middle of a school year. And there wasn't further guidance from the commission about the length of the phasing, meaning would it be done over 1 summer, 2 summers, 3 summers? So I didn't get that input from the commission.
Okay, but we have the letter from the chair of the commission telling us that the commission wanted to to do it in phases.
Yes.
And okay. Right, and you're saying that they did hear your viewpoint on that,
Yes.
and in spite of hearing your viewpoint, they still wanted to do it in phases.
Yes.
Patrick, would you permit me to add some experience coming out of Marin County around this?
Go ahead, David. Thanks.
Thank you. So in Marin County, when there was an opportunity to lower the speed limits from 25 down to 15, Marin County, there are 17 separate school districts. I think there's 11 major school districts and then a bunch of other smaller private ones. There was an effort to lower speed limits in the county, and the decision was made in concert with a lot of the municipalities to reduce the speed limits. And it was done all at once. It was done over the summer so that when the school year started, parents and the schools were fully informed. Marin County has a very robust Safe Routes to Schools program. And so there was a really good vehicle, pun intended, to get this information out to the families and the students and the administrators. And it was actually a very smooth process. So in most schools around Marin County, there is now a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. And there was very little pushback once that went into place, and phasing it seemed to be confusing. As Patrick said, there was some discussion about if we did it, for instance, in Novato, but not in San Rafael, what would drivers think? And so it was done all at once, and it was very successful.
Thank you. I have a couple more. On ordinance 692, I couldn't find an effective date. Does it need an effective date?
We're permitted to install or implement school zone speed limits whenever the ordinance is adopted.
So it would need to have, it would go after second reading, which I presume will be happening at our next meeting if you were to introduce it tonight. It would go into effect 30 days thereafter, and then I believe we can't enforce until signage is placed. So I think those would be the next steps.
Okay, thank you. And then I hadn't caught this before, but AB 321 allows a prima facie extension from 500 feet to 1,000 feet for the 25 miles per hour around the school.
David, I don't know if you want to comment, but that was meant to be if we had if the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit from 500 feet from the school was on a 30-mile-an-hour street, the state's thinking was transitioning from a 30-mile-an-hour to 15-mile-an-hour speed limit is very abrupt and gave jurisdictions the ability to slow vehicles to 25 before 15 or 20 or 15 as a transition zone. It doesn't apply to anywhere here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Patrick. And the way that the ordinance is written is up to 1,000 feet. So you could, instead of doing it at 500, you could do it at 600 feet. There's a recognition that not all roads are built the same. So.
Okay, and then we received a comment letter from Bill Foxon. Did you have any thing you'd want to tell us about that? Any response to the comments he makes?
If implemented, there are signs that are required by the state to make this enforceable. We would minimize the amount of signs that we would install, and we would try to replace existing signs, on existing poles. So we would work to minimize the number of new signs on poles installed in any neighborhood.
Okay, and then this afternoon we received a letter from Stella Witherspoon. Do you have any comments on her suggestions?
Right. Stella had proposed initiating or starting and ending the new speed limits at intersections. And I think that there might have been 3 intersections that she had proposed. We just shorten to start at the nearest intersection, and that's fine. I would agree with that.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more questions from council? I want to thank council for their questions. You've covered mine and appreciate the answers. So we will move to public comment.
Mayor Dawson, do you want to start with public comments for item 12A?
Oh,
Since we have two items open, I
that's-
think if we covered 12A
yes,
and
let's,
move on to 13A.
let's do it that way. Then we'll move on to 13A.
So our first speaker in the meeting room is Libby Henry, to be followed by David Clark.
Hi, Libby Henry, 3812C Happy Valley Road. We used to always do that. I'm a little confused because unless I missed something while I was sitting here, he didn't talk about 12A. He just kind of went on to 12B. And what residents were given was a 110-page study, the traffic study that was given for the 8 designated areas. It seems to me that the consultant and Mr. Golier seem to think it's a given that all those speed limits should be reduced because they said so. I wrote a letter and other people have written letters. The only letter that supports that is from the president of the HVIA, and I want to draw attention to that survey that he took. There are 1,100 families in Happy Valley, only 106, at least that's what he said, 106 people answered. I was one of them. And of those, I think he said 79 people said they were in favor of a speed reduction. Well, I was not one of those 79. And 106 is approximately 10% of the families in there. And having to drive on Happy Valley every single day, if I'm behind somebody that is going the speed limit, there is inevitably a line of cars backed up, which is fine. And if I'm going the speed limit, there's a line of cars behind me, and so on and so on. There's 110 pages of this with nice little colored graphs and then a summary of the findings following each one. When you read the findings, you will see that not just one, but all 8 areas of study show that the vast majority of people drive at or very near the speed limit in all cases. I did not see one area that was below 79% tile. Most were at 84, 88, 92, all well within your 85% range of, I don't know what that is, a perfect score, I guess. So with that conclusive information, the traffic engineer is still recommending a speed reduction to all of these areas. And I have to ask myself and all of you, why? I thought I was given 6 minutes. This.
Sure, we took 2 items that were on the agenda, so to the extent someone wants to speak to the first item, they would get 3 minutes. If they only want to speak to the first item, it would be 3 minutes. If they want to speak to the second item about the school zones, then they would have 3 minutes for that.
Oh, I have a comment for the second item.
Beatrix, could you add? Okay.
I'm sorry.
When we get to public comment for 13A, you could come back up. We're taking public comment for item 12A now. So thank you. You had your 3 minutes for that. You can come back to ask. I know it's different, but we opened up both.
Well, I heard her say that I had 6 minutes, so that's
You
why I
have
didn't.
3 minutes for this particular agenda item, 12A, and you will have another 3 minutes for the next agenda item, which was open, so that we could be talking about it together.
Okay, well, that's kind of unfair because I wasn't finished with my thought.
Well, you had 3 minutes for 12A and you will have 3 minutes for 13A, so we'll welcome you to come
But
back on that.
the rest of my thought was on 12A.
Ah, okay. All right, thanks, Libby.
Next speaker, David Clark.
Hi, Dave Clark in Lafayette. Couple things. One is a general question or comment or observation about enforcement. And I don't know if enforcement figures into any of this or how it can be enforced. I mean, you can enforce it with a police officer on a motorcycle or a car. I want to pass on something. I took the Citizens Police Academy a number of years ago, and one of the sessions was taught by motorcycle officers. And what they basically said was, we know the vehicle code backwards, forwards, upside down, and sideways. So don't argue with us about the vehicle code because you will lose. And most of the time, the observation they made was, if you get pulled over by a motorcycle cop, you're going to get a ticket. So don't even try to argue it because it's probably not going to go anywhere. Officers in squad cars got additional responsibilities, but anyway, I just pass that on. So maybe a way to enforce is, I don't know, twice a day, morning when kids go to school, for the school, in the school situation, or any of these situations where there's high volume of traffic, maybe a motorcycle officer could park at a particular point and just cause a slowdown. You can do that in the morning, do it in the afternoon. And I don't know if that's enforcement or not. But anyway, I did have a general observation or question about enforcement and how that factored into the, and where that was considered in the study as well. Another thing, a second comment is, and Nirup, this has to do with, you made a comment at the, it was a chamber meeting recently that something along the lines of, I don't know if you remember Pogo from the old comic strips, but I've seen the enemy and he is us. The comment that the city manager made was that the people driving the cars that are going fast are us for the most part. It's not people cutting through from Walnut Creek to get to whatever. It's us. So maybe part of the awareness program or something we can do to get us, all of us, to get behind this is to say basically, these are our kids. I don't know. You can have some clever phrasing in terms of you know, we're all in this together. I'm just off the top of my head, but that may be a way to quote unquote sell this, is just that something along those lines, which makes sense to me. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm starting to drive slower just because I have to, but I understand that I'm probably in a minority in that respect. But, thank you.
Thank you, David. Those are good suggestions. Any other public comments?
Mayor Dawson, there's no additional speaker slips for item 12A, and there are no hands raised in our webinar audience for item 12A.
Okay, then at this time, we will take public comment for item 13A.
Libby Henry. No, you do not. You
Come
are
on up,
called to
Libby.
the podium.
This is regarding both of them. The studies about this, you didn't do any studies about the schools. All of your facts in your physics lesson about speed reduction and all that is all well and good. But the fact remains that most people in Lafayette, around Lafayette, in school zones, they all obey the speed limits already. There haven't been accidents, there haven't been collisions, there haven't been, you know, there was one tragic accident, and speed was not the cause of that. So it makes me angry because we have a city that's asking the people for more money to pay for a deficit when we have studies that cost the city a lot of money to be done, and they want to force the rest of us to do something that is not necessary. Lafayette is a very safe place. We have safe speeds. Most people are okay with what is. And it makes me angry that 110 pages of study shows there is no problem. But we're having to pay for a fabricated idea that, oh, vision zero. Guess what? Vision zero is a pipe dream. The only way you get vision zero is if you take cars off the road. And if you want to take our cars off the road, you know, welcome to the fascist state. You people, Happy Valley and Upper Happy Valley both have sidewalk, pedestrian pathways all the length of each road. They have stop signs on Upper Happy Valley Road, 3 different ways. There is warning signs and a speed reduction around the sharp turn. The one fatality in Happy Valley happened in December 15th, 1972. I know it was my friend. And that was before Happy Valley was 35 miles an hour at that time and lowered to 30. To lower it to 25, to lower the speed limit to 25. So the entire length of Happy Valley and Upper Happy Valley is like a school zone, when we haven't had any of those things that are caused by speed.
Thank you, Libby. Are there any public comments?
Mayor Dawson, in our virtual audience now, we have Robert Lavoy.
Thank you, Robert. You're commenting on item 13A.
Sorry, I missed the 12 B comment. I put my hand up right at the end. So I focused on the east side of Mount Diablo Boulevard, and I dispute the fact that they claim that it's a high injury network road. We did a lot of research trying to find out about the one incident with a couple of high school girls at 10 o'clock at night where they're proposing the crosswalk. And we don't know if there's any speed involved or not. It was very difficult to get any information from that, but it wasn't mentioned in the police report. But that's really the only accident, like, you know, the last 5 years or so on that street involving pedestrians. There are really not that many pedestrians on that section of road. There are a few businesses. They're mostly like places where people drive to, like Ace Hardware, the car wash, Starbucks. You know, there is a bike shop there, but it's really not a generator of a lot of people or bikes, to be honest. And I think by putting the blinkers in, you can deal with the you know, need for a crosswalk in the middle of that road. But the prima facie speed, safe speed under the old regulation would have been 40 miles an hour as I read it. The 85 percentile was like 38 miles an hour. And it was already lowered from 40 to 35, and now proposing to lower it to 30 means that you've got about 90% of the people driving on that road that are driving safely will now be considered speeders. And I just don't think that's justifiable. Anyway, I probably had some more comments, but I can't find them right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Mayor Dawson, there is no additional hands raised.
Okay. I just want to answer to the questions that came up from the public comment about 12A. Was there any studies? And yes, we did review those studies in November of 2023, which are the studies basically that you see today, and we're revisiting that. And it is not a given, that's which is why we're discussing that. Then the next question was, finding all it's let's see. I think, was there another question that I missed? I don't, okay. All right, then that was that. We'll bring this back to discussion.
Are we closing the public hearing?
We are closing the public hearing.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to confirm with Patrick that the studies that we have in our materials, we are required to do those by state law. That was not an option.
The engineering and traffic survey study is required to maintain enforceable speed limits. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you for that clarification. That's important.
So procedurally, you want to talk about 12A first and then go to 13A?
Yes, let's talk about 12A and go from there. So 12A, back to that one. Does anyone have comments about 12A? Start the discussion. Councilor Rendering.
You're not on.
Okay, just in terms of the posture we're in, last November, we did adopt the ordinance and we agreed that we would bring it back and we would have a full hearing. So everyone would have an opportunity to comment on that. So now we're not adopting a new ordinance. We're basically just saying if we want to keep what we've already adopted or not. So question for the city attorney, should we have a resolution? No, not, well, should we just?
I don't think you need that. If you want to continue with the ordinance, it is in effect. If you wanted to change it, we would need to bring back.
Okay, but if we wanted, we would just all agree we're happy with what we did. That's all we need to do. Okay, well, I'm happy.
Okay, so we want to uphold the adopted ordinance, basically. So why don't we?
I still have a really big problem with Mount Diablo Boulevard, First Street to Pleasant Hill Road. It just seems so, like actually what Rob Lavoie said, it was 40, we went to the 35 and now we're going down to 30. And that's a big change for a fast road segment. And it just seems like we would behoove ourselves to do some of the nice treatments that we've done to help slow traffic down, and not, if we just do this, bam, we could have a enforceability issue with just basically everybody's going to be going more than 30 miles an hour. And and it doesn't seem like that's ever been allowed. I mean, like this whole, you can't lower it so low. You can't just post it. Like you have to show the proof. And it doesn't seem like we've, satisfied that burden of proof in this study. And so I have a really hard time with that problem, with that segment. I would go for all the rest of them except for that one.
Well, I do have, then why don't we confirm it? Does the study satisfy it? Because you're proposing it because it does satisfy the requirements that we're able to look at the lower speed limit.
It does satisfy. It gives us the option to do that, correct?
I would opine that I think originally when Patrick, you did the presentation, you were explaining how speeds actually were set. They were set like if the 85% of people are going this fast, then they set the speed limits that way, which wasn't necessarily logical, because if everybody's speeding, then we're gonna have a higher rate of speed on there, which doesn't make sense in a downtown corridor when you think about it, that rate of speed anyway. So in my thought, I'd like to see it be a more logical speed and a more safe speed. I think this graph that we've seen with just a 5 miles mile per hour difference can save lives is, I think, important in a downtown, especially as we're going to have more people potentially and hopefully as we build out our housing element along the corridor. So I know what you're saying. It's different, but I think it's it's our responsibility to be a safe city. And it's actually a lesser cost than the other treatments that we might do. Just
True, I just don't think that we're going to get the result that we want. I think it's just going to be a frustration point and not not a real defensible thing for us to go, well, we just wanted it. And that's, if we really wanted it, we would do it right. And we're not doing it right, in my opinion. And so that's just my view of this. If we want 30 miles an hour, great. Yeah, let's do it. But let's help our citizens go slower and then get the speed limit in there instead of just posting it and saying, sorry. I don't know. That's just my viewpoint. And it doesn't mean that you guys can have a different decision than me, but that's how I see this one particular segment. I think it's going to be a frustration, and I think it will be a problem for us, politically.
Any other comments? Councilmember Duray.
Yeah, I agree, Mayor Dawson, with your comments. I understand what you're saying, Councilmember Kendall, about, but I think setting the speed limit is the first step, as opposed to any other thing. You say, this is what we expect. And on that, this is where the evolution has come along under the California Vehicle Code over the last 20 or so years. I mean, it used to be you couldn't take into consideration bicyclists, pedestrians, that sort of thing. Now we can. And if we are saying that we want to be a more bicycle-friendly city, more pedestrian-friendly city, I think we need to take the step of reducing the speeds. And I think this is the first step. I don't think anyone can argue that anyone is going to be seriously inconvenienced by reducing the speed from 35 to 30. And anything we can do to reduce the speeds, I mean those are just great. The physics is just, I think, overwhelming here. So I think we need to move forward with it. We're going to have a slow down Lafayette meeting day after tomorrow. We'll talk about steps that we can take. But I think the first step is the city saying, yes, we want the speed to be 30. And then, don't jump right into enforcement. I know there'll be requests for enforcement right away, but just post it, publicize it, and then if it doesn't come down, then take additional steps. And then as we necessarily over the next 10 or so years need to reconfigure the boulevard, then we talk about whether we widen sidewalks, narrow lanes, and those sorts of things. But I think this is a necessary first step at this point.
Any more discussion? Vice Mayor?
I just had maybe a question on Mount Diablo Boulevard, then on from Uncle Yu's down to the city offices. What's the speed limit through the downtown area? We've been talking about the speed limit on the east side. How about on the west side? What is it?
25 between First and I believe Dolores.
First, so
On
it
the
goes
city
from
office
25 to currently 35, and used to go to 40 on the east side. Now it's taken to 35. Now it's being asked to go down to 30 compared to 25 in the downtown core.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I actually am a little sympathetic to Councilmember Kendall's concern about Mount Diablo, actually, and just reflecting on what you said, Mayor Dawson, which I agree with. We're obviously we have a much higher housing density downtown. We're not precluded from changing speed limits later, right? I mean, if we actually have a lot more housing downtown, we could lower the speed limits, right? We don't have to. We're not lowering in anticipation of something's going to happen in the future, right? I mean, I'm just saying this isn't like a one and done kind of thing, right?
Oh, to lower them?
Right.
Patrick, can you answer to that?
That's true. Yes,
Right.
we could do it later if we wanted to.
Any more
But
discussion?
but this is the second reading of this particular of 12A, right? So we've approved it already with the 30 mile an hour, right? Okay, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. I'll come back to this one in a second, but I actually on Happy Valley Road, which is out of these 8 streets, it's probably the one that I've driven on it the most in my 20-some years because my kids went to elementary school there, and I ride my bike down there a lot. And that's one that I can really relate to amongst all these. And, the road for 30 miles an hour, it seems to be doing fine. I would say that's a speed I think myself would be reasonable. And I see the recommendation here for 25, slowing down. And I say, well, it doesn't really matter what I think. what I think is, I'm the judge of the speed limit? No, or are we looking really to the studies and reports, or should we look at what is the community saying? And on that point, I really want to thank the Happy Valley Improvement Association for spending the time to conduct that survey of 1,000 residents and getting 100 responses of a 10%. That's actually a pretty good response rate. The typical might be 2 or 3%. But it was interesting to read the responses, and all the verbatims of the respondents was actually found quite interesting, because there are many friends of mine, people I know, and I respect them, that were literally on opposite sides of the issue. Some people said, we really want to slow this down on 25. We really should get it down. And others said, it's not broken, don't touch it, right? So it just was an expression of how many reasonable people can just disagree on this. And we're a community that will have different views on this, and I myself might have a view one way or the other. So it's the question is like, okay, so what are we going to do? What's good for our community? Is it a democracy, or does the majority win? And then because on a survey like that, and I say not necessarily. I think I want to read the minority view to see reasonable there and to see whether this is justified. But where I sort of end on this is that I do think that we are, as a community, trying to slow things down. We're such a frantic society. We're always in a rush. We're not paying attention, and we're just driving fast. And I do think we're trying, as a community, to make room for other modes of transportation, pedestrians, bicyclists, and to transition our society just to be less car-centric and more welcoming of all forms of safer of transportation. And our Vision Zero is a core iteration of that belief that we try to do. So I do find it consistent with our move as a community to slow things down, and let's enjoy Lafayette. I 100% agree with Councilmember Anduri. So if you did the math and see what's the difference between driving at 30 versus 25, you save 10 seconds to get from one place to another, a few minutes. It's not going to be a material difference. So it is more that we're all slowing down. Some people will like that. Some people will not like that. And so even though I might have a view on that particular road stretch, I can agree that on these 8 stretches that it's an overall effort to slow things down. Now, specifically as to Mount Diablo Boulevard, I also sympathize with the east side. It's so wide. It seems like you can just go forever, and it's very inviting to go fast. And it will seem awkward to go at maybe that lower speed. But to that point, I think we are trying to set expectations for the future, make room for crossing. We've had past meetings where we're trying to cross the street and safely and get all the way to the other side with fast-moving vehicles. And so in the spirit of making room for pedestrians and cyclists, I do think it is consistent with just, you've got 25 on one side, it's still going to be 30 on this side. Okay, it's not 35, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, we just set the tone that in the downtown, it's just going to be a different speed there. So I can accept that as well. So I am not, so my conclusion on all of this is really that in the concept of slowing down Lafayette and being less frantic, I would support keeping this ordinance as it is. Thank you.
If there's any other questions or comments? I would agree. I think that, thank you, Vice Mayor Kwok, for that. I do agree with all these efforts these past 3 years has been to slow down Lafayette. And it is definitely a safety issue where we are trying not to be so car centric. And it is true, there are distractions even right out of pulling out of our driveways. People might be looking at their phone or something. And these are your neighbors you're talking about being around, going out into the street. People you know immediately, or, if we're talking about downtown, which is interesting because downtown is this mix of hopefully mixed use, more businesses and more people living there, and more, hopefully, people crossing the street to get to where they need to go. So I think this is is something that is our responsibility, just to help our community slow down, be a safer place to be, as well as just be more welcoming and conscious of the fact that we do need to look out for each other more. So, and one way is to be mindful of the speed limit. So I I agree that I would approve of what we had adopted earlier. So is there any motion that we need to take to adopt this basically as is the ordinance? I will discuss that next. So we'll take a action on 12A if we're ready to do that. So what I will do is, anybody want to?
Well, I guess if there's no action on 12A, then there's no action. But if someone had a motion to amend it, 12A,
Thank you.
we could vote on that.
Well, it would be to bring it back.
Oh,
There's
bring
n-
it back?
Right. So
What's the
if it is, what I'm hearing is a majority of the council would like to uphold the existing ordinance. I don't think we would need a vote to do so. I think the minutes can just reflect.
I'd request a vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a roll call vote.
Well, then I will, do you want,
Oh, thank you.
I'll move that we uphold the existing ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I will take the vote by roll call. Councilmember McCormick,
Aye.
Councilmember Anduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Candell,
No.
Vice Mayor Kwok,
Yes.
and I am a yes. It will be adopted a 4-1 vote. Thank you. And now we will move to item 13A. And I invite council members to start discussion. Councilmember McCormick.
I'm reflecting on the timing and the comment we had about the staggering of it. And I actually have to say, I wholeheartedly agree with the staff recommendation doing this at once. I mean, we may think of these things as two different issues about, schools and street speed limits and other speed limits. But I think for the community, we're adjusting speed limits and it's about slowing down no matter where you are. And I think the communication, the outreach, everything we need to do makes much more sense just to do it all at once. I think phasing it out and dribbling it out seems like just painful to have things change at different times. So I just want to say, just starting off the timing, I think linking these together as an implementation makes a lot of sense to me.
Any other comments, discussion? Thank you.
Yeah. So I actually agree. And thank you for sharing the experience in Marin, and that really helps drive that decision. I think that makes sense. The one I do have a problem with is around Burton Valley. And Bill Falkson's thinks, we've done so much work around that school and really have achieved what we need to do. And they're so sensitive about the signs that, is there a way where we can just kind of make sure that we're not putting in a whole bunch of new signs? We have definitely clarity that we won't be putting in, maybe it's one new sign. I need it like an N, a number. I would ask, someone has to come back, right? This is the first reading.
First reading. but
Okay,
this-
so I would request that we do a real dive on that and make sure that they know that we're changing existing signs and not creating a whole bunch of new signs. I would ask for that for the second reading.
For Burton, can I ask a question?
For Burton Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
For both streets.
Both streets in Burton Valley, correct. And then I do like Stella's suggestions to stop them at intersections, especially when they're signals or stop sign metered. So those are two things I definitely agree with.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. I don't know if you want to separately ask if everyone's in agreement with that. So we're moving forward with the ordinance. It's amended.
This one is an introduction of ordinance 692.
Right, but that calls for,
As amended I
Okay.
guess I think all you're asking for, as I understand, is just maybe in the staff report listing out the signage for the
Oh,
Burton Valley.
well, but the other thing is rather than going 500 feet, stopping at an intersection, at the
Right.
intersections that are called out. Maybe those aren't.
So there's a
in the
couple
ordinance
hundred,
itself.
a couple sections that are shorter than the 500 feet.
Right, they mid-block, so, or
Right.
almost, so to bring that back to an intersection stop point. Okay, I just want to also mention, I thank Superintendent Stevens and Andy Comley and Mr. Faxon for their remarks of support of this. And I did appreciate that ending picture, Mr. Faxon. That was good. The sidewalk does end there. Okay.
I would like to go on the record. I'm kind of frustrated that we can't lower Happy Valley and right in front of Happy Valley School to 20. I actually think that is, I mean, these are very helpful guidelines, but the fact that, I mean, just because Happy Valley happens to have larger lots, they're somehow like penalized, or we're unable to lower the speed limit a little bit seems unfortunate. I'm just going to go on record for that.
Right, but that's the California vehicle.
That's right. So we're just, we're
Yeah,
going to do.
That's similar, it seems, to the business district, that, 50%, it's like, that's a larger space as well. That's, you can't do that. So interesting. Any other discussion on this?
Okay, well, just, sorry to be so technical on this, but on Exhibit A, I guess we would be changing it so that under Acalanes High School, the second road is Stanley Boulevard, when it says from, and then 2 would be to Camino Diablo, not 200 feet east of Camino Diablo. And then under Burton Valley, it would be in the from column, we'd be deleting 200 feet north of. So it'd just be Sandalwood. And Patrick, you probably already have the third one. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks for that detail. Okay, the recommendation here, let's go back there, is to introduce this and adopt this. So would someone like to make a motion with?
I'm sorry, it's just to clarify, it's to introduce ordinance 692 as amended and continue to April
Oh, thank you.
22nd for second reading and adoption.
Okay, then I guess we can move on because we'll continue with those amendments. And that'll come back.
Yeah.
We still do, okay.
Okay, so I'll move, we introduce ordinance 692 as amended, conduct a first reading, which we've done, and continue to April 22nd for a second reading and adoption.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you very much, Patrick, for all that work. And David?
Thank you all very much for your time this evening. Appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Great work. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to item. Let's see here. We are at 13. Are we at 13B? We just, oh. My eyes. 13, oh yes, 13B1, City Council's priorities. City Manager Srivatsa.
Thank you, Mayor. You held a special workshop on March 24th to discuss this and review the status of your current priorities and set desired priorities for the upcoming fiscal year and with desired outcomes. And you have set 3 priorities. All 3 of them are iterations of what your current year's priorities. This is a report. The recommendation is to request that you confirm that these indeed are your priorities. Then staff will use your guidance to develop our budgets, look at the resources, and come back to you during the months of May and June for budget adoption.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the staff report? Okay. So the recommendation here is to confirm. Oh, yes, thank you. Would there be public comment? Thank you.
Mayor Dawson, I have no, I have David. I have David Clark.
Dave Clark. A couple things. On page, I'm not sure we're looking at the same document. This was what was appended to the agenda for tonight. And it's actually the staff report. The 10th item for the downtown Mount Diablo Corridor Enhancement Plan got dropped off in the staff report. So I don't think that was intentional. There's an item, how to make Mount Diablo a great street. That's in the body of the document. It's not in the staff report. But those ought to be lined up. I'm thinking, what? Okay, never mind. Anyway, that's just a suggest, I'm pointing that out because I think it ought to be there, but it's not in the staff report. I didn't attend the meeting. You probably noticed that because I'm sure amidst the thousands of people who were there, you noticed I was. But I don't know. So I don't know if you covered this, but as part of the items for the downtown, for that goal, the downtown Mount Diablo Corridor Enhancement Plan, the 8th one is plan for parks and other amenities. I don't know if you talked about what some of those other amenities might be, but if they happen to be things like creek pathways or trails or signage or just pathways in general, something like that, I think it would be helpful to spell those out. If you talked about them, I'm not trying to put words, to create something that didn't happen, but if that was part of the discussion, I think it would add something to list those in item 8 with respect to that goal. Another general comment, I didn't see anything in here, it may be here, but I didn't see anything about GPAC. And GPAC is going to be looking at the land use element. Well, they've started now, and that probably ought to mesh with this to some extent. And I'm not sure if it needs to be formalized in terms of acknowledging that GPAC is looking at that at the same time or not. But if you think it should be, then we could add something along those lines. And a third thing, I didn't see anything in here about volunteers in general. There's a lot about staffing and how it's going to be hard to do some of these things. But we've got, and you all know this, but I'm just going to point it out anyway. We have a wonderful volunteer system that works through both the the creeks on the brain, through the committees and the commission structure. It's already set up. So we have staff time. The city spends staff time attending each of those meetings and kind of shepherding projects through. Well, it seems to me we could use that as a vehicle to some extent. Oh my gosh, I'm already out of time. To funnel ideas or things that you want to get done through the volunteer structure that might be able to take some of the pressure off.
Thank you.
Staff.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
I have no additional speakers in the meeting hall, but I do have Robert Lavoie in our webinar.
Welcome back, Robert.
Thank you. The comment about making Mount Diablo Boulevard a multimodal and a beautiful street. I just want to remind everyone that that's the main thoroughfare through town, in fact, the only one. And I just wanted to see if you guys, if work on the bike path, the East Bay Mud Pipeline easement, is that like part of the thinking in terms of saying that? Because I just don't want to see us saying that this is our goal to sort of throttle the center of downtown when we only have one road. Look at San Francisco, they've got roads on a grid and they still made a mess of, I forget what street that is, where they put the bike lane in the middle and they're now considering redoing it. The merchants aren't happy. And so anyway, I just want to make sure that we remember that it is essential for evacuation, for normal traffic, and of course the businesses being successful. And all the new housing that's being proposed with inadequate parking within a half mile of the BART, and also the development on the BART parking lot is going to reduce the amount of parking available, increase the amount of people in the area, and continue to put more pressure on parking downtown. So I just want to make sure that those are included in the definition so that people don't say, oh, we voted as a priority to make Mount Diablo beautiful and it'll have one lane of traffic and a bunch of bike lanes and pedestrian walks, and then nobody will be able to get around. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, so a few questions. David, you asked if we were talking about amenities and just to quick thing. We talked about a lot of things. The main subject of the priority workshop was talking about our fiscal sustainability issues and how we know money is going to impact all of these things. So that will come back to us. Staff is going to look at what they can even do as some of these like sub things that we were looking at, and we'll go from there. The discussion will continue, put it that way. GPAC, we are aware of that. That's kind of the, if you look at the iceberg, our priorities are on top and everything that city has to do is on the bottom. And definitely the general plan is being worked on as a mode of business just going forward, and has been. And thank you for the volunteers discussion. We actually did talk about that, knowing that staff is impacted right now, that how could we take advantage of the wonderful volunteers that we have and their energy. So that was, I think, also discussed, I believe, at the workshop that staff had. And Robert asked about if we are keeping the East Bay Mud easement in line and in mind. Yes, we are. We are not looking to throttle the downtown. That's why we're all these questions about how do we make this a great street with all the different things that we're contending with. So we do have that in mind. And again, it's an ongoing discussion that you will be a part of, hopefully. Okay. What else do we need to do here? Basically just come back and confirm the priorities. So thank you. Councilman
Well,
Mandori.
I have some comments.
Oh, yes, please. Let's
I
have
don't have any on
discussion. Yeah.
number one. Number one as written, it's
Okay.
good. And I didn't have any on the third one until David Clark spoke. But now that he's pointed it out, just a minor addition, but in number 8, if we can make that plan for parks, creek pathways and other amenities. Given that we've put such a, priority on making the creek a major amenity for the downtown corridor. So I, again, propose that 8 read plan for parks, creek pathways, and other amenities. And then he pointed out, you were, what Mr. Clark was asking, where did make Mount Diablo a great street go? It was number 10. It's been moved up into number 2. But I have a minor issue with that because I think make Mount Diablo a great street is a broader concept. So it sort of takes away from both concepts, I think, to combine those. I think make Mount Diablo a great street is a great idea. Number 2, I think we really need to focus on how we reimagine, if we can, how we redevelop the Mount Diablo corridor so that we don't have to add more cars. And that's the main concept there. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to do right away because so many things flow from that. So those are my comments on the third one. Most of my comments are on the second one, wildfire. And some of them are minor. For example, in number 2, it says participate in the countywide emergency evacuation plan. Can we put in there a CCTA, countywide emergency evacuation plan, just so everybody knows which one we're talking about? And then in, let's see, number 3, I'd like to add, after additional shaded fuel breaks, I'd like to insert additional fire ignition detection resources. That was one of the 2 things I mentioned, along with the one that is there, additional fire suppression resources. And then in number 4, work with legislators, and I'd like to add, and other relevant parties, because it's not just the legislators, to ensure that wildfire risk is considered. I would delete by the state, because it's not just the state, there are regional groups that are considering it. So it was considered when determining the next regional housing needs allocation, and then it goes beyond the RENA in my mind. So I think if we could add the words, and when establishing land use policies. So it's when we establish the RENA, it needs to be taken into consideration when any land use policies are being formulated, it needs to be taken into consideration. And then fifth, my pet item, I'd like to add something that reads, develop an objective standard for wildfire risk to apply when making land use planning decisions.
You say that one again?
Develop an objective standard for wildfire risk to apply when making land use planning decisions. And just as a background to that, I don't expect that to be done in the next year. I just want that on there as a marker. Because again, as I said during the meeting, I feel very uncomfortable voting for any development in a high fire severity zone without having some more objective way of evaluating what the risk is.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay, I'd like to add under wildfire that we work with our utility and communication partners as outlined in the safety element.
Work with. What comes after work with?
Pardon?
Work with utility.
Oh, utility and communication
Okay.
partners. That'll be. Thank you. That's a lot to capture. I know.
I'll watch the tape again.
Okay. Then with that. Oh, and we took public comment. Yes. So I am looking for a motion to adopt these priorities so that staff can come back and do their evaluations.
I make the motion to confirm the priorities as amended for the next fiscal year.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I want to thank council for that workshop. That was a great discussion and staff that was there and our commenters that showed up. Okay, now on to 13B2, the homeowner's fire insurance non-renewal.
Thank you again, Mayor. Bringing to your attention the fact that State Farm has sent several notices of non-renewal to its clients in the Bay Area. And it appears that in Lafayette, 30% of the State Farm clients will receive non-renewal notices, not as high as Diablo or Orinda or Calistoga, Los Gatos, but still significant. It is a concern you have heard from many of your constituents before. This is a growing concern, and State Farm may not be the only insurance carrier that goes through with these non-renewals. So the city of Orinda had reached out. We communicated last week. They have sent a letter to our legislators and to the insurance commissioner, urging them to step in and take some action. And I am recommending that you authorize the mayor to do the same.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, sorry, quick question. So we see an example of the Orinda one. Are we the thought is we're gonna write one that's unique to Lafayette, that's along these veins? I mean, because.
That is correct.
Question, last comment, this letter seemed kind of genteel to me. I mean, we are in a crisis of like unprecedented proportion, and we're writing like, we respectfully ask that you like look into this matter. I mean, we are well beyond that phase. And so I mean, it's a question as well as a comment, because I think there's homeowners, which is important, but you're having apartment building owners cannot get insurance. Businesses are losing their license. This is not just a homeowner. I mean, homeowners is like the tip of the spear, but we're getting, there's a lot of businesses whose insurance are getting dropped as well, which I think needs to be addressed because obviously it's so important to us. So I just don't, So I guess I'm just kind of wondering how we're gonna take all this direction and craft a letter that kind of has a sense of urgency. Because reading the Arinda one, it's good, but I was kind of unimpressed, I have to admit.
Thank you. So put some fire into this, basically. Yes.
I
sense
mean,
of
we won't be the only ones. It was just
Yeah.
more of a, it was more, I read it and I was like, didn't grab me.
I agree. It's a place where we need to be very expressive about where we're at. This is a crisis for our residents and our businesses. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I guess more as a comment on this topic, which I read the Arinda letter to say, we've been good citizens with MOFD to reinforce, we've really worked hard for 10 years to reduce vegetation. We have programs, we've raised money to implement measures to reduce risk. And yet insurance companies are not only not rewarding us for reduction of risk, they're not renewing policies. And so I would say that's the way I read their letter, is the complaint that cities that are doing something, shouldn't we be rewarded? And I guess if we looked at what's our letter supposed to look at, I think we are making good progress. I don't know if our ask will be exactly the same as that letter, but I think that the other piece of the message is simply that we're very concerned on behalf of our residents, our businesses, and so forth about coverage, which is not a matter of city jurisdiction, but somehow the state they recognize it is an insurance crisis too. And but I think we're also asking, I think similarly to Arinda, that I would like the measures that we're taking to harden our homes and reduce our risk to be rewarded. And I'm not sure that given what this particular insurer has done has contemplated that.
Right, but it's almost like the that's almost, you're right, but it's almost like we're almost past that, unfortunately. I agree that Arinda, we should, I know Lafayette's done a lot, we continue to do a lot, but the fact that we're not even like the point of we should be rewarded or like mitigated, like they're just canceling policies anyway. It feels like we're kind of well past that, unfortunately. That's almost like a first order problem, but we're now at the second order problem of not only are they're not just doing increases, or we're not holding steady, we are losing ground considerably. So it's almost like there's two different letters. There's a letter that Arinda wrote, which is talking about the mitigation, and we should be, for the policies we do have, our citizens should be rewarded, but also we're losing all these policies, and what do we do about that? But
And then the third level is, and you're asking, and I think this is a little bit in the Arinda letter, but I'd like it to be more in ours. And you're asking us to do all this. You're asking us to add 20% more housing. And how are we going to ensure that housing? I mean, it's just, how can we do it? I mean, we're writing as a city that's 48% high fire severity zone. And I think we need to highlight that's, there are cities that really have these big problems.
Do you want, are we going to make more comments, or, I mean, because none of this is really questions, trying to take.
Yeah, I
and
think
then we
what
can.
we're, oh, right, we are making, having a discussion here. So, yeah, any more questions? And then we'll move to public comment. Okay. Any public comment on this topic?
Yes, Mayor Dawson, David Clark.
Dave Clark, this is a huge problem, as you all know, and Councilmember McCormick, I completely agree with you. I think it would be a mistake to copy the gist of this letter and send that, because I forget the word you used, it's not trivial, but this is a very, very small piece of this problem. In fact, I went through this. I mean, farmers canceled our policy 6 months ago, and so we went through this. And Councilmember Kwok, you and I had a conversation about hardening in general. Well, that hardening, in my case, had I done that when we went through, I got the FAIR plan, and farmers is still insuring everything except fire, but that hardening would have resulted in a 2 to 4% discount. 2 to 4%. I mean, it's nothing compared to what we're talking about. So if you write this letter about not getting about you haven't rewarded us for hardening, you're addressing 2% of the problem. I just think that that letter has to be broader than that. And also, I didn't read this letter that way. I read this to say, look, we've hardened our community. Go find somebody else in another community where you can cut off their insurance. Make sure you keep ours. So, and another part, I could go on with this for quite a while, but I won't. But well, I'm going for 1 minute and 49 seconds. But another part of the problem is a lot of these same companies ceased writing new policies. So this is a renewal. They're not going to renew the policy for folks when it comes up for renewal. They quit writing new policies last year. So what worries me about this whole thing is the California Fair Plan going bankrupt. I mean, I've read a couple articles about that. They've got hundreds of billions of dollars of exposure that, I read something the other day that says we're one major fire away from the whole house of cards falling down. So I don't know how we address that with Assemblymember Kahan and you know, writing to the governor is great. I mean, writing letters is fine. I always, you know, you kind of stir the pot and let them know we're here, but that's fine. But I think the California Fair Plan, to a great extent, was Governor Newsom's idea. He knows it's there. And so there's, and there are at least 2 or 3 letters that were written, public comment for tonight for this item. And there's some wonderful ideas in there. There are a number of things in there that you could, Christine Rasmussen's letter has a lot of content. And I think we can draw on a lot of that content to come up with I think we should write a letter, but I think it needs to be much, hopefully much more expansive than what we have as a sample, just because that's the magnitude of the problem. Well, I'll quit with that. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Mayor Dawson, there are no additional speakers at this time.
Okay, then we'll take it back to discussion and how we want to shape this letter. So please.
So I am one of the people that got canceled, yay. So I reached out to an independent broker that people were saying might be able to have contacts into other insurance agents around there. And I want to read you, and he came back saying, oh, no, you only get the FAIR plan. That's the only thing left. And I go, okay, tell me exactly who you used to be able to contact and how that's not possible anymore. And he goes, yes, in a normal market, I write with Safeco, Travelers, Hartford, Nationwide, Hippo, Progressive, Stillwater, Bamboo, Chubb, CSE, American, Modern, and those are the major ones. I'm an independent agent. There are carriers that only work with their own agency force, namely State Farm, Farmers, AAA, Allstate, that he does not have access to. As for the FAIR plan, they have been overwhelmed with applications and requests for quotes. Normally, they return a quote within a day or two. The last firm quote, one step after online price indication, where they do a quick underwriting, it took over 2 months to return a final bondable quote. Not only that, the FAIR plan is a basic plan that only covers smoke, fire, and explosion, no other perils covered. So to get fully covered, people have to buy another supplemental plan called a difference in conditions plans. Yes, I work to try to help California homeowners who are in a precarious position. Getting the dreaded cancellation letter, no fault of their own, results in fear and frustration and looking for a replacement policy. If unsuccessful, it will result in a forced place policy, adding even more expense on top of already expensive housing costs. And I think he's absolutely right. I think that this is a crisis of not being able to get insurance is like kind of this unthinkable thing that we never thought we would have to face, right? I don't know about you guys. I never thought I would have to face that in my lifetime, and it's frightening. And so absolutely, let's write a stronger letter. I think one of the other things we need to add is that the stuff that I've read is that all the insurance, the way the plans are set up now, they have to use old data. Like they're forced to use historical data in their projections. The problem with that is like things changed. You know, things fundamentally changed with our climate and our risk in California. We have to, I mean, like it or not, we have to let them put in the real analysis they need to do. They're going to charge us more. I get it. But if California has to bear the brunt of this could do a bankruptcy in California, right? And so these legislators, we got to tell them, guys, get off your, whatever you're doing right now, gut and amend some of the laws that you're trying to get through right now and address this. If they don't address this cycle, next year we have a calamity. So I would add that to them.
Yes, please.
So to that end, I completely agree. And I agree that I'm reading about it as well. It's like right now they have to average 20 years back.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is we've had so many major fires in the last 7 years that the data is all skewed and they can't actually, but so to your point, and I think to Mr. Clark's point, writing to the governor is fine, but maybe it's really to be to our legislators to actually, help, or I guess it's everybody, but I mean, it's really important. I think that we need a real solution. Just complaining about it's not going to do it, but it's concerning.
Yes, and it could be also letter to the governor, copy to our representatives for sure. But I think we hear what you're saying, that it needs to be, I'm sorry, before we've wrapped.
Oh, just wanted to point out one interesting stat that was included in the report was State Farm. It looked at zip code 94549. They write 3,142 policies in this city, and out of 10,000 residences, if they do 31% of market share, that's a very significant player. And of those 3,142, 956, or a third of them, did not get renewal. So that's close to 1,000 of our 10,000 residents that are impacted by just this one carrier. So this is a very significant bit of news for our community.
And I just want to add, we're State Farm, and our letter was that in July, they might have another notification of whether or not.
More?
So there could be more. I mean, because it was kind of a vague thing. It's like, okay, we'll get back to you, basically. So it could be an even bigger number than what we are seeing here.
Does anyone know what's happening with mortgage lenders? Because if people are not able to renew their insurance,
Right, you can't get.
then I haven't seen any stories that have talked about major mortgage lenders stepping in and taking action, but that would be even worse disaster if that started to happen.
Right.
Please.
I just wanted to point out that at last week's mayor's conference, Orinda did bring this subject up, and Mayor Dawson also spoke about it. I think there's strength in numbers to have the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference.
Yeah.
Send a letter would be good. I'll work with the Orinda City Manager to see if we can make a request to Gary Pokorny to see if we can add that to the agenda. I don't think it affects other Contra Costa cities as much as it affects us now, but it could happen in the future.
Thank you.
And if,
yeah.
If you, I would encourage you to talk to your counterparts in other cities and urge them to bring this topic up for discussion. I think the more people who know it, I was struck by all the zip codes and cancellations. That was just a lot.
So how do you want to proceed? Do you want to, you've gotten a lot of input. Would you prefer to do something and bring it back for the council to look at? I'm perfectly willing to leave it to, but if you would feel more comfortable doing something and bringing it back, I'd support that too.
We can. What is your preference? We'll leave it up to council since this is our.
Personally, letters written by committees can be kind of get pretty large and
Right.
kind of lose a sense of cohesion. So I'm actually okay if, given you've heard our concerns, and I think you've got, I'm
Yes.
fine. I think a single writer kind of doing it is going to give us a more compelling letter. And I'm very intrigued by Councilmember Dury's at least put in the impact of the additional housing that we're being asked to add.
Right.
Everything else is just really a phenomenal kind of kicker on the whole thing.
I've taken notes. I know City Manager Schwartz has taken notes, so we'll.
And we'll work with Suzanne to craft a letter.
Yes. And it will have the critical nature. We'll make sure we underline that and the major impact. And this does align with our council priorities to educate our residents about the implications of insurance. So.
And you can let them know that our number one priority. Oh, no, actually,
Yeah.
it's not number one this year.
Number one of the what? Yeah.
It's top three.
Yes, it's top three. Yeah. Okay. Yes, please. Can I have a motion to authorize us to create and send a letter off?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Thank you for the discussion and the ideas. Okay, there are no public hearings. Nothing has been removed from the consent, and we'll move on to council and commission reports. Councilmember
Okay,
Endorian.
well, there was a great event today at 2 o'clock at the corner of Tushock and Lafayette Circle. Vice Mayor Kwok did a great job of emceeing the event, and Councilmember McCormick spoke. It was to unveil part of our 175 plus land acknowledgement, our acknowledging and educating about our Native American past. And we unveiled the wrap on the utility box with the new wrap. It looks beautiful. It's really a good job with the land acknowledgement on one side, and then unveiling the street signs. They too look great. Thanks to the Land Acknowledgement Committee, task force, to the Public Art Committee, and to the Historical Society, to all the members of the Lafayette staff who really contributed to this. Public Works did a great job and had great input. So it really was a community effort. We had a good turnout for it. And CBS and NBC were there, did extensive on-camera interviews with our celebrities. So it was a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I was very proud to be there and with my colleagues, because this, to me, putting this image in the very heart of our city, like right in the downtown, in that intersection, and to see these beautiful street signs and a very beautiful utility box wrap. I think that's an understatement, but to have our land acknowledgement statement there, and we had Councilmember McCormick and the other three members of the task force take turns reading each sentence through, and I thought that was very fitting. And unfortunately, City Manager Srivatsa had other duties and could not read her sentence, but it was, I think, quite touching for me to see our city step forward to honor our Indigenous history and to make it as permanent as we can right in the heart of the city, to raise education and awareness, which Councilman McCormick made a point to say that many of our students study history of Indigenous communities, but the adults in our community have less opportunities to learn. And this is just one step in a path to engaging our whole community to learn more about our Indigenous history. So thank you for your work there.
Yeah, thank you. And I will also, I just consider this a gauntlet throw down to the other cities in Contra Costa that have not done it. Orinda, Moraga, Walnut Creek, all the others that we're kind of looking, I think, to us a little bit to kind of hopefully some leadership. And let's hope, I think, especially with the publicity and the good publicity we've got from it, we can inspire some of the other cities to take action as well. So that would be the true reward for all of this. So, yeah.
And I say, I don't know if anyone else I got a call. Suzanne had set it up with the KQED news and asked about, why we did this. And I said, well, it sort of fits in with today. The eclipse helps us see our place in the universe, and recognizing our Indigenous past helps us see our place in history. So it was quite a day.
Well, thank you. It sounds like the city and this effort was so well represented. So thank you all. And it is wonderful to honor our history and our historic peoples. So thank you for all those efforts. And thank you, Wait for stepping in. I appreciate that. Wonderful. Okay. Any other reports?
I will give two others. Just a reminder that Earth Day will be celebrated in the Lafayette Plaza on April 21st, Sunday, from 11 to 2. And it's hosted by Sustainable Lafayette. They've been doing it for years and years and years. Thank you for Sustainable Lafayette. And the Environmental Task Force will be there talking about our transition to electric leaf blowers. So I'll be there. I welcome any other council members and members of the public to join me. Also, another in the Emergency Preparedness Commission, we talked about a number of activities coming up, almost too numerous to mention just to talk about public outreach. But on May 4th, which is the first Saturday in May, it's Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. And so that will be, it's perfect because we plan to do some chipping in our community, I believe. And on my street on May 6th, that following Monday, couldn't be even more ideal timing to get everybody out that weekend and really work on vegetation management, hardening their properties. But May 4th is a national day of wildfire community preparedness. And I think that at least our own Emergency Preparedness Commission is trying to make an effort to elevate that in our community's mind and take tangible action thanks to the report we heard also from our city trying to elevate it. So I think the timing is working out just great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I do, I'll mention something that besides I think the hate speech at the school, I don't know exactly what we're planning on doing that. I would love to get a statement out at least. I know you guys are working on that and I think that's great. And wait till you're going to meet with somebody that's delightful. Do we need to bring that back as an agenda item at some point? If there's going to be action, do we bring it back as an agenda item? Kind of the same thing for El Catola, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's what I was going to talk about was First Amendment. We've had a lot of activities with both of them.
Right. And so do we bring these back or what are we going to do?
I think I'll defer to the council, but I think if it's a statement, we can work with the mayor and the city manager and Suzanne and craft something.
Yes, go ahead.
Could I separate them?
Right.
Okay, sure.
On what we heard at the beginning of the meeting, I understand their meeting set up. I think it may be better if we hear back from those meetings and then we decide what the next step will be.
Sure.
On El Cartola, I have to say, after coming back from Japan and getting the groceries the week, we did drive by there. And while I understand the emotion, it was, in terms of public safety, it was a nightmare.
Right.
And I really think we should put it on the agenda for next week, next meeting.
Or whatever's the right time to do it.
Maybe we can confer about what meeting to put it on. I think the next meeting is quite long, but I could put it on a future agenda.
But definitely agree with you. Yes.
Yes, and I would like to update that too, because that's one of the updates I'd like to say about El Cartola. So we had that first meeting in March, and then that second meeting just recently was in response to as NREP have been doing, kind of keeping Caltrans informed, not only with the comments that are coming in, but also events that are coming up. So we were notified, the organizers did let us know and just forwarded the message. And it was interesting because Caltrans is at this place where it is tough for them to even know what enforcement looks like themselves. So they are looking to the CHP, who wasn't part of that meeting, and we will follow up with Caltrans. The letter has gone out, and we fully hope and expect to get a response to have another meeting. And if we need to, I would think we need to go back to Senator Glazer to help us, because what happened on Sunday was the signs went out on Friday and there was no enforcement. So it's almost like, oh, okay.
Mayor,
where are
maybe we
going?
can just add this to that future agenda.
Yeah, I know we're discussing this, but it's like, I think it's important that people know also that council is aware of what has transpired, that we are, because you're probably going to be getting more notes from people. Same with the issue at Lafayette Elementary. I wonder how we can do that on a more current basis so that other council members can know what we're doing without violating the Brown Act, just so that people are aware the city is doing something, responding somehow. What is your suggestion on that? I think in First Amendment in general, because, we will, after we hear from, wait till we'll probably bring this back later, but El Cartola, same thing. But as things are happening, we're all getting comments, sometimes people just send it to all of us. And I'm wondering if there's a way for us to say, oh, the mayor did this or this discussion happened, or does it have to wait for a council meeting to be updated, which.
I'm sorry, is it to get the word out to the rest of the council?
Yes, to just keep them apprised of what is happening.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the pleasure, I think the city manager, I think, does periodically give updates. And so I think you could do that more frequently. Oh, you're saying to the community so that the community understands what's happening between,
Well, definitely council, so that if we are responding to residents, we know what has been happening at the council level, at city staff level. And I would imagine the community, then it would be at the city manager's updates for that, but
Are we on El Cortola?
we're kind of on
'Cause there's,
both.
again,
because-
they're separate.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
separate items. I guess I'm talking about when these type of demonstration and First Amendments where you have different sides, so to speak, kind of letting people know that we have responded or what we have done.
So,
Well,
In general, as a subject
just
matter.
on El Cortola, I'm concerned that we need to have more communication with the community about what we're doing. Because I'm concerned these emails and comments on Nextdoor about how the city's turning a blind eye, how the city police drive by, how the city's not doing anything. And that's just not the case. Or the city can do something, but it's choosing not to. I think we need to address that.
it would seem like, I mean, like the update that city manager gave us at the beginning actually did a nice job outlining everything
Yes.
that's happened with the history and what's going on, whatever. I mean, to me, and unfortunately, I think it's in the city, it's in the kind of weekly update, but it's almost like a statement on the website that we can
Right.
all refer to, and point to, tell people to give them an update that's just got a consistent single page explaining the situation. To me, I guess the First Amendment issues are kind of, those are important, but I think it's really more, what's the.
Sorry, I know,
Oh, I'm
Molly, we're
sorry, I'm
going
getting
off on
very
a tangent.
uncomfortable with the discussion, but I think the city manager and I talked about, and Councilmember McCourt, it's exactly what we were
Okay,
just talking about, that the city manager could put something similar to what she said today with a letter on
Yeah.
hot topics on the
Perfect.
website.
Yeah, I think just so we can
And
all.
then I
all
think we'll
point to
bring,
it.
and then I think we'll bring the El Cortola issue
Just
back.
a quick question. Did anyone drive by there on Sunday?
No. I was out of town.
Yeah, I was out of town, unfortunately.
Okay,
I wanted.
and
Yes, please. No?
Very brief. I'm pretty.
I'll just say
uncomfortable.
there was a tent erected at the side of the bridge. So it was far beyond.
Okay.
And yes, because we have been getting reports from neighbors, and that's why it's important for us to just point them somewhere, so they are apprised of what we are doing. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. Okay. If there
Mayor,
are one
I
more,
wanted-
I apologize.
If we're not done with that, we'll take public comment on that item.
Okay.
But I think Councilmember Kendall, did you? have something
Yeah.
to add?
So I had the opportunity to be a part of a really great meeting last Thursday. It was organized by Our Neighborhood Voices that I'm a part of and a proponent of. And we were able to get the president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, Aaron Peskin, who is now San Francisco mayoral candidate. And we sent out invitations to all the coastal electeds in the state of California. And it was hosted by Aaron. And then we had some other people on there too. But we discussed the 4 bills that are affecting our coastlines that could forever change our coastlines and are absolutely attacking the authority of our coastal commission. And so as I know, that's not something that is, we don't have a coast, but we care about our coasts deeply. I know it belongs to all of us after the Coastal Act was passed. And so there is now a coalition and meetings moving forward to organize all these cities in order to fight back. And the unfortunate part of this is as these bills pass, the only thing left to untangle them is the Our Neighborhood Voices initiative, because you can't untangle all the pieces that have been enacted in any other way than a constitutional amendment to bring local land use and zoning and also restore the Coastal Commission's authority of land use and planning. You can't do that without a constitutional amendment doing that. And so it is very exciting. We're getting a lot of buy-in and getting, emails from lots of mayors going, oh my God, send me a resolution. I want to support the initiative kind of stuff from all up and down our states. And so I just wanted to let you guys know. And it's very fun.
Thank you for that. I have one more. Attending the mayor's conference last week, there was a presentation by Central Sands, and unfortunately, they are looking for funding options because they also have been impacted by high infrastructure costs and inflation. And of course, that affects all the agencies that they work with. So they will have a workshop coming up to talk to different cities about different ideas and communicating that. Lafayette is in group 4, which is, I'll look it through this date and procure that, but they are going to be looking to different cities for ideas. They were to start planning something. So by, I think it was 2028, Narup, if you remember, they might try to put something on a ballot as well to raise funds. If they can't raise those funds, they will be looking to the cities, which is not a happy message for us either. It was what one mayor described as a depressing topic. So
What are they thinking about putting on a ballot?
ways to raise money. So either it would be a property tax or similar to kind of what we're looking at, you know, something just to raise money. They're looking at different tools to do so. And they tried that, I think a few years ago. It didn't pass. It was nominal. It was like $12 or 16 for each parcel, and it didn't pass because they didn't educate well. So there's some good things to listen to from them, and the same, you know, reflects also on what we're trying to do here, fiscal sustainability, but just a heads up, that's out there as well. All right, if there is no other reports, well, I'll ask for public comment.
Mayor Dawson, I have no speaker slips and no hands raised in our webinar audience.
Okay, there are no written communications, so we will move on to adjournment. Thank you all. Yeah.